Okay, all right. Time for another video. You might recognize that. That's a Bluetti AC200. I got in on the early bird special, I guess you could say. I got that for $10.99. So I got it delivered to me in November, and I think I was the second or third shipment out of China. And then about a month after I got mine is when they ran into the battery supply issues, and they switched over to the AC200P. So this is the original one. It's still 2,000 watts. It's 1,700 watt hours, which I think they think about 1,500 of it is usable. But anyway, we are going to try to do a test today. I've been on many forums and had people talk to me about the Bluetti and talk to me about these scooter batteries. And I always ask them the same question: are you going to be running, they're looking to use 2 or 3 or 4 scooter batteries to prolong their battery inside the Bluetti. The Bluetti comes with an attachment for the solar, and it also comes with this part of the attachment, XT90. And I've got all my batteries wired up to XT90s. So the question is, do I run the 236 in parallel, or do I run the 236 in serial? Now the difference between that voltage-wise going into the unit is a difference between 36 volts and 72 volts. It's actually a little bit higher than that. Say, for example, we charge our battery up. I'm actually getting about 40.2 volts out of them. And then I'm figuring I can run them down to 30 volts. The problem with this is that the Bluetti can only accept PV values or input values from the solar, anything above 35 volts. So my theory is that if you hook up 2 of these batteries in parallel, you're only going to drain them down from 40 volts down to 35 volts, and then the Bluetti is going to shut off. So you're actually going to get half of each battery. However, if you hook it up in a serial connection, you're going to go from 80.4 volts all the way down to 60 volts. Now in this case, you're relying on the BMS inside of the battery, which should shut itself off sometime between 28 volts and 30 volts each. So you're relying on that. So we're going to test that theory today. I'm all set and ready to go. I've got all 4 batteries at 40.2 volts. These 2 batteries are going to be my parallel connections. I've got them running into this hub. We'll run them into the Bluetti. These 2, I've made myself a serial adapter, so we'll run those in. Now let me just check the voltage just to verify and show you that indeed we're up to snuff here. Okay, first off, the Bluetti, I did drain down to 37%. So we're going to base everything on how much energy will it take from 37%. Each one of those batteries are 460 watt hours, so times 2 is 920 watt hours. Oh, you figure about a 15% inverter loss, or so you're about 782. So let's say 800 watt hours roughly we're going to put into that. So that should be a considerable boost into that at 37%. Now, just to show you that indeed we're running the right voltages and stuff, here is the 72 pigtail. Now a full charge would have been 80.4. There's 80.3, awful darn close. And then on the other side, $40.1. He just flashed 40.2 when I hooked it up. So we're going to try the 2 batteries first. The 2 in parallel. We're going to run them into this Bluetti, and we're going to see how we do. Okay, we've got our BMS activator all hooked up with the white wires, and we are ready to connect our cables. And they are connected. And let's see if this thing starts charging now. Probably takes a few seconds to recognize. Let me just make sure that it is. No, there it goes. Okay, we got 400. Oh, it stopped as soon as I got up there. Okay, hold on. My BMS activator board's acting up. Okay, here we go. I changed some things around. I put the Jehu activator board in there. Not quite sure why the other one wasn't working. Batteries, power there. We'll keep an eye on that when it gets down to around 30-ish or so. We'll see if the Bluetti shuts off. And it's taking in 406 watts out of these batteries. So it's going to probably take, an hour and a half or 2 hours or so. So we'll check back in a little while and see how this thing does. Oh, almost forgot. Let's start the timer so we know how we're doing. All right, stay tuned. Okay, found some extra data you might be interested in here. That shows our input voltage and our current. So you see it's doing 9 amps, 351 watts. And we will let this run. This actually might be a good way to see, is it going to shut off at 35 like it says in the book? Or will it continue to go all the way down to 30, which is what we want to get a full battery charge. So we'll see how it goes. Okay, we're about 10 minutes into this thing, and I had some changes. I guess 11 minutes into this thing. There's the timer. I've had some changes that really are not good, I suppose. When we first started off, we were at 455 watts and 9 amps. Now we're down to 201 watts. So 197. So it's progressively getting lower and lower and lower in terms of what it's pulling out. I did check the batteries. They're not warm at all. So there's nothing going on there. The fan has not come on the unit. If I back out to the main menu, you can see it's taking charge because we started at 36%. But it's only taken 185 watts. So based on that, this test is going to take a long time instead of 450 watts, which is what we thought. Let me just do some things and see if we can affect this. Let's go back into data. First of all, let me just show you my settings. I'm on PV. I got eco mode off. Into data. Inverter and charger info. PVC. Charge info. Let me just try unplugging this and then plugging it back in and see if it will go back up. So there we've got it unplugged. And there we've got it plugged back in. We'll let that come back online. The other thing I'm seeing is a discrepancy between the input voltage. You see there it says 40.2. Down here I'm showing 38.3. And we are at the 13-minute mark. Oh, now it's changed up there. 38.8 volts. Now we're getting our 10 amps again and almost 400 watts. So I don't know why it's slowly going down. If someone has an answer for that, please put it in the comments. Otherwise, if this thing continues to trickle down to nothing, it's going to take forever to charge. Now, I know that my voltage is higher than 35%, and this is from 35 to 150 volts, so we know that's not the issue. So we will let this thing keep on grinding. There's a fan. Fan come on there. It's a pretty quiet fan inside of this Bluetti, I gotta say. All right. We'll check back in a little bit. Okay, just to check in at about the 1 hour mark. And yeah, I'm discouraged. I'm seeing the wattage drop down on that. My battery itself is coming through, showing 37.6. It should at least put out to 35 is what I'm thinking. Here's what we got on the Bluetti. Input voltage 38.6. So again, it should go down to 35 at a minimum. But look at the input power and the amperage. 34 watts is all I'm getting out of it, and 1 amp. So is it that it's tapering down, getting closer to 35 watts? I guess we'll find out when we hook up the 72 volter, if that's the case. But let me just unplug this quickly and plug it back in again. Okay, there I've unplugged it. We'll hesitate a few seconds. And then we'll plug it back in. We'll let it get rolling. And now we're 360 watts, 9 amps. So I'm not quite sure, what is happening there. Now we're back up again, and it'll slowly work its way back down. If you've got any ideas, let me know. Let's just try one more thing while I'm here, and I'm thinking about it. I don't know that it'll let me turn it off. While it's charging. Yeah, I didn't think it would. So let me unhook it. And turn it off and turn it back on again. All right, we'll give it 10 seconds or so. Turn it back on. We'll let it fully get up. What were we at, 36%? I should write that down. So we're definitely making progress. All right, let's go ahead and plug it back together. And now it will probably go back up again. Here I've got 37.6. I'm showing the battery. Here it comes. 360 watts. $370 watts, 9.9 amps, 10 amps. And we are at the 1 hour 8 minute mark. So this will slowly start to dwindle down again. So we'll come back and we'll check in another hour and see how we're doing. Time for check-in. We're coming up on the 2-hour mark. Our battery is down to 36.2, and up here it says 37.3, and you see it's moving slow. 26 watts, 29 watts, 8 amps, 0.8 amps. Certainly not doing what I was hoping it was going to do. I probably should be recording some of this stuff. So it was doing, at the 2-hour mark, it's doing 33 watts and 0.9 amps. If I unplug it for a moment, we'll wait 10 seconds. And we'll plug it back in. We shall let this initiate now. Well, we're back up to, look at there, 368 watts and 10 amps. Let's just let this run a little while and see how long it can do that. I know it's certainly doing it longer than a few minutes. All right, let's go back to the main menu. We are at 56%. So we've gone from 36% to 56%. And we'll log that down at the 2-hour mark. I am now at 2 hours. See my wattage coming down. Let's just go back and see if there's any faults. Adapter low voltage. I wonder how long ago that was there. That's the only faults that I see. Adapter low voltage. Well, could it be that battery pack? Could it be that it's running down? I'm actually showing 35.1 on here now. Even though normally we would run those batteries down to 30 volts. So like I said with my thought process here of running parallel battery packs, you're only going to be able to run them from 40 volts down to 35 volts, which is the limit of the Bluetti. Where if we hook them up into the serial configuration, hopefully we can run it down, and hopefully we can prove that. So let's go ahead and back out of here. 375 watts. Let's go back into the charge data. Let's just see if there's anything else interesting. It's funny, nothing on the fault history now, even though I looked at it a minute ago. There we go. Well, it's starting to come back down. Still up there pretty good though. 9.9 amps. 354 watts, 358 watts. So maybe as it gets to the lower end of the, closer to the 35 watt stage, maybe it starts to taper down and draw less from it. I don't know. So we will check back in 1 hour again, I guess. We are at the 2-hour mark now, and we will check back and see what we're doing there. You know, on second thought, we might not be able to wait 2 hours if this thing's going to cut off at 35 volts. It's showing 35.8 right now. So maybe we'll come back in 15 minutes or something, 20 minutes. See where we're at then. You see our wattage is starting to come down. Okay, we are a little over 3 hours. And my battery shows we're below the 34 volt threshold, but the Bluetti still shows that we're up above the 35 threshold. It has gone down to 1.4 amp hours. It is only drawing 46 watt hours now. So I don't know if it's because, like I said before, I don't know if it's because it's coming down on the amps and that's why it's drawing down, or I'm coming down on the voltage and that's why it's drawing down or not. So I think what I've decided to do, I don't want to leave this plugged in and I don't want to let it go all night and lose my data. So I think we're going to write this down. 3 hours, 10 minutes. We have 35.9 volts. We are pulling 35 watts and 1.1 amps. And let's see what percentage we're at. And we are at 66%. So we have gone from 36% to 66% in 3 hours and 10 minutes. So I think from here, I'm going to go ahead and pause. Let's see, there should be a way to pause this thing. I guess I can stop it and restart it again. Yeah, I can stop it and reset it again. And then I'm going to go ahead and turn off the Bluetti and unplug my battery pack. And we will continue right where we left off tomorrow. Well, have a good night. We'll see you tomorrow. Okay, friends, good morning. We'll see if we can continue this test right where we left off. You can see the Bluetti is at 66%. I do not have it plugged up yet. We'll go ahead and get back to our... There we go. All right. Now our battery is at 35.1. That's those two batteries we've been testing. Our timer, we'll get everything started again. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to plug it together, and I'll hit my start on my timer, and we'll see if we can continue this test. Now, one thing that's interesting is although I'm showing 35.1 volts, the input voltage on the Bluetti is showing 36.4. So, all right, here we go. Now it's starting to kick in. 9.5 amps, 336 watts. The wattage seems to be climbing. $10 amps, 355 watts. So it's not going to take long. Oh, there we go, 34.8 volts. So we'll see at what point this thing shuts off. Running at that high of amperage and wattage, we'll see if this thing is going to shut off on the low voltage disconnect, because that solar panel is only supposed to charge for something 35 volts and above. So we'll see what's going to happen here. Maybe we'll keep this running for a couple minutes. Not sure what happened with that other dongle again. That That's discouraging. I'll wait till after this is all over and deal with that. I don't know why they would be losing their memory or losing their capability of putting out the signal or whatever, but if that is indeed the case, that's a couple of them now. So, and it took me forever to get them working, or to get a working model, I should say, working with Aaron. So I had 3 working models altogether. I might be down to 1 now. I don't know. 3 minutes 13. 3 hours 13 minutes. And that's where we sit at. You see our wattage is starting to drop down already. 285 and 82. I would imagine that there is a margin of error on that low voltage disconnect. You know, they'll say 35 volts or above, but it might actually go down to 34 or 33. So I guess that's what we're going to wait and see. So I'm going to pause this, and we'll come right back if I get any action. Okay, let's do a quick check-in. It's been 3 hours and 30 minutes now. And back at the 3 hours and 12 minutes, so it's been 20 minutes, we were putting out 385 watts, 10 amps. It was 66% charged. So when we first plugged it in this morning, we were burning 385 watts and 10 amps. Now it's been 20 minutes. And you can see it's coming down. 2.4 amps, 84 watts. Wow. And 84 watts, 83, I'm writing that down. Okay, so things are starting to come down on it. One thing I'm wondering is the MPPT must be boosting up the voltage to keep it around that 35 volt mark, because if you see my actual battery is one full voltage less, 33.9 instead of 34.9, so it must actually be boosting that up, and at the same time the amperage and the wattage is coming down. I mean, at some point it's going to be a trickle charge. Let's go ahead and see how much our battery was charged. We were at 66% this morning, and now we're at 70%. So it is continuing to take a charge. We'll monitor it again and just see how low that wattage drops, and if it continues to receive a charge. Get back to inverter chart. Oop. Inverter PC. Okay, so that's where we stand right now. We're still putting in 97 watts, but what really gets me is when you plug it in, man, it's doing great. I mean, you're getting almost 400 watts into the system. And then within 20 minutes, it tapers down to 80 watts, 90 watts. So I'm not sure what's going on there, but we'll keep watching it and see what happens. Well, all right, here we go. 4 hour mark. Trying to squeeze everything I can out of these 2 parallel batteries. Show you where we are. Well, let me show you the battery first. The battery's not going down very much at all. 33.7 volts I'm showing. The Bluetti must be boosting it up, because you see it's staying at that 34.9 voltage. However, it's not it's not putting out the wattage, not drawing the wattage, pulling in the wattage, I should say. Because you can see now we're down to 0.4 amps, 13 watts, 10 watts. I have seen it down to 9 watts. So that's not good at all. 0.3 amps, 0.2 amps, 6 watts. So you can see it's barely taking any charge at all. It's boosting up whatever it can and it's giving out something, but it's not giving out much. So let's go ahead and take a look and see what our total charge is. 71%. So in the last half hour, we've gone from 70% to 71%. So this test is just about done. I'm anxious to hook up the 72 volt version and see what we're getting there. Now, I'm going to go ahead, since it's been a half hour and things have tapered down, we're not getting any wattage inflow anymore. I'm going to go ahead and unplug for 10 seconds. And we'll see, well, let this go a little bit longer, I guess, past the 4-hour mark. I'm going to plug it back in. We'll see if it jumps back up and starts actually producing, pulling in a higher wattage. It's plugged in. It's thinking about it. There we go. So now we're at 9.1 amps and 304 watts and 33.4 volts. I imagine this is going to probably drop rapidly. See, the voltage is dropping. Now we're below that 35 volt low voltage cutoff. We're at 33.3, so I'll be curious to see if this thing actually cuts it off or if it continues to run for the next 20 minutes and just lowers everything down. Alright, we'll let this go a little bit longer. Okay, we are at the 4-hour and 30-minute mark. Got my battery down to 32.4. As suspected, over the last half hour, we came down on our wattage and amperage. Just for reference points, we started out a half hour ago at 9.1 amps and 304 watts. So I think I'm going to call this test at 4 hours and 30 minutes. I think I'm going to go ahead and see if the other two do better. So we'll go ahead and call this. And before we call this test, let's see exactly what our wattage ended up being. 74%. 4 hours, 30 minutes. So we managed to go from 36% to 74%. Now I'm going to go ahead and we've got to get this back down to 36% for our next test. So I'm going to go ahead and use this free energy, charge up my batteries. Here we go. 240 watts. So I'm sure that'll take us a couple hours, so we'll be back then.